Welcome to Gunsmoke Theater. I'm Dennis Daly. Very few radio or television programs had such an impact on their medium that they changed everything. One of those shows was Gunsmoke. Yes, it ran 20 years on television, but the TV show was a child of the radio show, which itself ran nearly a decade. Sit back now for the next hour as we go back into the archives and play some of those great episodes of the show that changed everything, Gunsmoke. Hi, and thanks again, everybody. We are trying to do as thorough an examination of Gunsmoke as can possibly be done in the course of a year. We're looking at how it all started and how the show evolved over a 9-year run. As we mentioned in a previous show, the head of CBS, William Paley, loved detective shows such as The Adventures of Philip Marlowe, and he thought maybe that type of show could be adapted as a Western. And so the head of CBS on the West Coast got together with a couple of writers and put together an audition show called Mark Dillon, not Matt. Mark Dillon Goes to Gouge Eye. And in a previous show, we played that audition, which was done in the early spring of 1949. And Rye Billsbury, with that great voice, was a kind of hard-boiled marshal, if you will. Then a month later, they got Howard Culver. You remember him from Straight Arrow. Well, Howard Culver did the exact same script. And so there was a second Mark Dillon Goes to Gouge Eye, but the texture is different. So here, from 1 month later, in 1949, with Howard Culver as Mark Dillon, is the second audition for Gunsmoke.
Gunsmoke. Gunsmoke, the story of the violence that moved westward with young America. The story of one man who moved with it. Mark Dillon, United States Marshal.
They all drifted here to Dodge City, one time or another. The Buffalo Killers, the Saddle Bums, the Spoilers. It's the end of the track and the start of the wilderness, the dumping ground of odds and ends and beginnings and leftovers. It's a place to stop and take the kind of pleasure you need. It's a place to pass through, and sometimes it's a place to die. My part of it was a sun-baked shack, rent paid by the United States government, and a marshal's badge, furnished free. I was at the window watching the heat plump itself with Kansas dust and roll in towards the town when the door opened.
Your name Dillon? You the United States Marshal?
She was about 50. Poke bonnet, gingham dress, beaded Indian moccasins for shoes.
They said there was a steady marshal here in Dodge City. Been living for 6 months running.
They've been lying to you. 4 months.
They say you and your gun can break a man's heart at 50 yards.
What's on your mind?
Want you to saddle up and get down to Gouge Eye.
Why?
My husband. He owns the White Buffalo there. Roulette, music, drinks. They say the roulette wheel's crooked.
I'll tell you what to do. There's a fella here in Dodge City named Sin Killer Stokes. Saves souls by the bushel. Trumpet playing and everything. You tell Sin Killer about your husband.
In Gouge Eye, they kill a man who runs a crooked wheel. I don't want my husband dead.
Well, look, ma'am, I don't even know
Abigail Contuarius. That's my name.
Yeah, well, Mrs. Contuarius, you don't need a marshal. You need an honest husband.
He's no more crooked than you are. If he was, I wouldn't take none of his money.
Sure.
Don't sure me, Marshal. The money don't just mean money to me. It means books for Indian kids and writing stuff. Slates and all.
Oh, a missionary.
Me? With a gambler and a philanderer and a toper for a husband? I teach Indian kids. Teach them to behave and a little learning, that's all.
Well, that's good work, ma'am. These towns could use more people like you.
Don't sniff around me. You marshals are supposed to mean law and order and the rights of decent people. Gouge Eye could use some of that. You coming, or do I have to ride my mule some more?
Ride it back to Gouge Eye. I'll be along.
Make it soon, Marshal. There'll be a convulsion down there if you don't.
It was night when the town of Gaujai loomed out of the wilderness and beckoned to me like a painted, skinny hag. If Dodge City had a sister, this was it. I rode up to the White Buffalo, started to tie my horse to a hitching post, whittled to the shape of a Pawnee girl, when suddenly the gun in my back told me I wasn't alone.
You won't like it here in Gaujai, Marshal. Pretty as it is, you won't like it.
No?
No, don't turn around, Marshal. I'm shy, I'm modest, I embarrass easy. Isn't that so, Harold? See? Harold thinks it's so. Harold had his tongue clipped. Apaches.
Maybe it was too long.
Oh, that's not a genteel thing to say to Harold, Marshal. He takes offense easy.
I'm new here. Back in Dodge City, the etiquette's a little more formal.
Then go back to Dodge. We're happy here in Gaujai, like little birds. You could spoil it.
I was invited. Special invitation.
Yeah? Well, the dance is over. Now, Harold, now! I told you wouldn't like it in Gaujai, Marshal.
When I opened my eyes, I was in Gaujai's dirt. And I knew I'd never forget that voice and that crazy giggle. I picked myself up and waited till the town stopped its dizzy dance. On its third time around, I spotted a horse trough and stuck my head in it to get rid of the blood on my face. I finally pushed my bones through the swinging doors of the White Buffalo. A girl leaned against the bar, strumming a guitar. Black hair, slender. And something profane and exquisite was distilled into her features. She watched me across the room, and when she spoke, it was as if she hadn't quit singing.
Buenas noches, Chico.
Evening.
Oh, a marshal. A marshal with a cut face and a muddy badge. You buy girls drinks, Marshal?
Here's a buck. Buy yourself one. Where can I find the owner?
Over there by the poker table.
Which one?
The goatee and pompadour.
Thanks.
Come back to me, Chico. They call me Tamar.
Tomorrow, huh? Maybe I will.
I said to him, see what we do with the
60 acres of fine bottom land,
Your name, Contorius?
Si. Oh, the marshal from Dodge City. You already have the look of a large headache, senor.
Yeah? Someone else besides you and your wife was expecting me.
Muy mal, too bad.
It wasn't good.
So I see. But I am glad you have come, Senor Marshal. Come, look around. See my place. I have a magnificent establishment here. No? Yes.
No.
Yes. You know, it would grieve me if I had to part with it.
It'd grieve Mrs. Contorius more, and for a better reason.
Senora Contorius hates it how I get my money, but she takes it for the Indian children.
Looks like the take's plenty.
No. Every day my wheel loses money. Somebody is swindling me. This somebody, I swear it, I will kill dead.
Your wife hinted it might be you who'd be killed, dead.
No one has killed me yet. This I tell myself and it makes me happy.
Yeah. Well, let's have a look at this wheel of yours.
Of course. Follow me. You see, I have also pharaoh, dice, girl, dancing girl. And the finest liquor west of the Mississippi.
Number 12. Red face, 12 face.
Where's your spinner?
I will introduce you to him. Greg.
Senor?
Un momento. William will take your place.
Yes, Mr. Contorius.
Greg Hagen, the best croupier in the territory. Greg, I want you to meet Mark Dillon, Marshal of the United States of America.
I've heard your name, Dillon. You're from Dodge City.
Lately from there. Go count your chips, Contorius. Hagen and I want to talk.
Yes, I leave you gentlemen alone.
We want to talk, Marshal?
Yeah. Rumor has it the wheel's rigged.
Mrs. Contorius tell you to ask?
Maybe. Well, is it?
Look, Marshal, Contorius is my friend.
Still, a croupier's in a mighty good spot to double-cross the house.
Marshal, I already told you Contorius is my friend.
Sorry, I made a mistake. No hard feelings?
Plenty hard feelings. I think I like it better back at the table. Look around yourself, Marshal.
So I did. Mostly, I hung around the roulette table. And as far as I could see, the wheel was giving the house and the customers an even break. Just about the time I was ready to go out and find Contrarius again, two new players wandered up to the crowded table. One in a beaded jacket, the other a silent hulk of a man. They didn't seem to be together or even know each other. On the next spin, the ball fell into 29, bounced out, rolled around 13, and finally settled in double O. Just as it did, Beaded Jacket reached out and put a $100 bill on double O. Greg Hagan, the croupier, looked up.
I'm sorry, mister, you placed your bet after the ball settled. The house can't accept it.
I had that $100 down before you started to spin. Ask anybody. I had it down. I want to ask the people. I'm telling you, I had it down.
Look, mister, your bet wasn't legitimate. The house recommends you take your money and get out.
He did. Fast. Too fast. In another second, I knew the reason why. When Beaded Jacket picked up the bill, there was a blue chip under it on double O, and the house paid off to the silent hulk. I knew I'd heard Beaded Jacket's voice before. When I first hit town, so I moved fast. I got out of the casino just in time to see Beaded Jacket disappear around the corner. I took it easy. Polite and easy. The bullet nubbed the dust at my feet. I ducked into the shadows and whipped out my guns. The flash had come from a narrow passageway between two buildings.
I'm in this alley, Marshal. Come on in and get me.
Wait right there.
I'm waiting. I'll strike a match. I want to see your face when it happens to you.
Try me.
No. You shoot first. You'll miss, you know that, Marshal. But I won't, because your gun flash will tell me where you are.
Real clever. That was clever what you did back at the White Buffalo.
Honest Injun. Tell me about it.
You and your friend. That was Harold, huh? The giggle with the talent for pistol whipping?
Tell me all about it.
You throw down a $100 bill with a blue chip underneath it after the ball drops. You get yourself thrown out. Harold, who never made a bet at all, collects 35 to 1.
Oh, did Harold do that? Did you do that, Harold?
And there he was, framed in the entrance of the alley. I was caught between them. Beaded Jacket and a mute called Harold. The big guns in Harold's hands turned over and over. His face held all the evil in the world.
You're right, Harold. Take him.
He was shooting waist high along the wall, and he was getting close. There was only one thing to do, and I couldn't miss.
Oh! You shot Harold, Marshal. That was your mistake.
When I opened my eyes, I was in a place I'd never been before, a kind of cottonwood clearing. I eased the wound in my shoulder, and from across a smoldering campfire, I saw her, Tamar. The morning sun lighted up the features of a man at her feet, Senor Rafael Ramon Jose Contrarius. The bullet hole in his forehead gave him an extra flourish. Now it was Senor Rafael Ramon Jose Contrarius, deceased, and the girl named Tamar was singing a love song.
Back to Gunsmoke in just a moment. Combining modern detective methods with secrets of the mysterious East, the Green Llama offers CBS listeners a new thrill now on Sundays. Once he has heard of a crime or an injustice, Jethro Dumont, a wealthy young American just returned from 10 years in Tibet, brings into play his quick wit and knowledge of illusion to thwart the evildoers. Join him Sundays as he continues his fight against crime on this side of the Pacific, wearing green, the color of Tibetan justice, aided by Tulku, his trusted lieutenant. The Green Llama is a feature presentation of most of these same CBS stations. And now back to Mark Dillon, United States Marshal, and Gunsmoke.
When they pinned a marshal's badge on me, they said I had a job to do. This morning, my job was a man with a bullet hole in his forehead and a marshal with a wound in his shoulder. The dead man was Rafael Ramon Jose Cantuarius. And the marshal was me. And there was a girl named Tamar.
You have slept long, Chico, without dreams.
How do you know there were no dreams, Tamar?
Because I saw Death give you a little piece of himself. And then ride away on his black pony.
Yeah, I'm lucky. How did I get here?
Senor Contuarius and I brought you here. The wagon over there in the burro. You are muy lucky, Chico. The bullet was for your heart, but it spent itself in your shoulder. It was not your time to die.
But it was Cantuarius' time to die, huh?
Perhaps his grave has been empty too long.
And you knew him well?
See, I knew him.
Well enough to kill him?
I did not kill him. Senor Contuarius was my protector.
What did he protect you from? Himself?
I like your mouth better when it is gentle, Chico.
Then who did kill him?
I do not know. While we were here trying to help you, a bullet came out of the darkness and found Contuarius.
How come you picked this place?
It is a place Senor Contuarius and I knew well.
Oh, like that, huh?
It is a place where Senor Booth would not look for you if he knew you were still alive.
Booth? Oh, so that's his name, the man in the beaded jacket. How come he didn't finish me?
When we heard the shots, Senor Contuarius and I ran out of the White Buffalo. I persuaded Senor Booth that you were dead.
Booth persuades easy, huh?
He persuades easy, for Tomar. The shots were heard, people came. Senor Booth does not like too much attention.
Well, he's gonna get all of mine, Tamar. Undivided.
I don't advise it, Chico. If you live, go back to Dodge City. If you die, die in Dodge City. Oh, wait. The Senor Contuarius in a burro cart.
Where is he? Where is he? Answer me, woman. Answer me.
There, Senora. Behind the marshal.
The marshal? Hello, Marshal. They said you'd been killed. Get up, Cantuarius. Get up.
He's dead, ma'am.
Oh. He shouldn't be lying there on the cold ground. I'll lift him up into the cart.
I will help you, Senora.
If you so much as touch him, I'll kill you. Come along. Cantuarius.
You're pretty strong to lift him yourself.
I've done it before. You're hurt, Marshal?
I'll be all right.
You can come too if you want. Take you back to town.
Look, ma'am, I'm sorry about...
Sorry? You should never have left Dodge City. All it got me was a dead husband. Get in.
Somewhere on that long wagon ride back to town, Mrs. Cantuarius squeezed a tear onto her cheek. Just one tear. But for her, it was a major emotion. The sun was doing its best to char the wood frame buildings when we hit Gaujai. She drove past the White Buffalo to the far edge of town, pulled up at a tar paper shack.
Oh! Here we are, Marshal.
Why bring me here? Just so I could pick my own gutter? Why didn't you leave me in the cottonwoods to die?
That door. That shack door right over there. Try it.
All right, ma'am.
Get in.
Yeah? Well, Marshal, I heard you were dead. Hey, you're hurt. Come on in.
Thanks.
Who sent you here?
Mrs. Cantuarius.
Huh? Better cut away that shirt.
Why'd she send me here, Greg?
Not neat, Marshal. Not neat at all.
Why here, Greg?
Lie still. I'll get some things.
You haven't answered my question.
I do things with my hands, Marshal. Spin roulette wheels and extract bullets between spins.
You a doc?
Yeah, I'm a doc. Was. Had a shingle. Nice, shiny one. And they said I couldn't have it anymore. Malpractice, they said it. What you looking at?
That roulette wheel on the table over there. Don't you get enough practice at the White Buffalo?
Don't strain yourself, Marshal.
I won't. I'm not too much alive. But I once knew a croupier clever enough to spin the wheel so that the ball would drop in any slot he wanted.
That'd be pretty hard to prove, wouldn't it, Marshal?
Yeah, it would.
Now, you want that wound fixed?
Uh-huh. I'll bite my lip real hard.
Do that, Marshal. It's a nice pose.
I bit my lip, but all I got was a pain in my mouth. And I didn't need that. There was enough pain. It started when Greg put a scalpel against my shoulder, and it went on from there. It went on for a long time. Finally, everything gathered into focus.
Keep that bandage dry, Marshal. You'll be all right.
Thanks, Doc. What's your fee?
This bullet, the one I took out of you, I want it as a souvenir of the time I saved a marshal's life.
You're welcome to it. Just tell me this. You know a girl named Tamar?
Girl in the Bible had that name.
Contuarius knew a girl named Tamar. Now he's dead.
Contuarius dead? Well, I suppose somebody wanted him dead.
Yeah. But stick around. I may want to talk to you again later.
It's always a pleasure, Marshal. I'll be around. What are your plans?
I'm going to take a killer.
With your shooting arm in a sling? I don't think so.
I'll gamble on it, Greg. Want odds? I got up and left Greg's shack. Taking a killer needed a little preparation. And right now, preparation meant talking to Mrs. Contuarius. But something stopped me. It was the funeral Mrs. Contuarius was celebrating for her dearly departed. Somewhere, she'd found a black ostrich plume and pinned it to the donkey's head. The cart she always used was draped in banners of black silk that looked suspiciously like the shreds of an elegant petticoat. 3 grinning Indian kids, maybe 8 years old, were beating the drum, clapping the cymbal, playing a flute. The rear of the parade was brought up by a bunch of other Indian kids, looking solemn because their new shoes hurt. And on the cart, in an open pine box, lay Senor Contuarius. I looked inside. The senor was still very aristocratic. I looked again, closer. Then I knew I just had to talk to Mrs. Contuarius. It was maybe an hour later when she drove up to the White Buffalo alone, her cart empty and stripped of the banners. She looked uncomfortable in her black cotton.
Lend me your good arm, Marshal. I don't want to rip this dress.
Yes, ma'am. There you are. Nice funeral, ma'am.
Thanks, Marshal. Kids behaved real nice, didn't they?
Yeah. You done a good job on them, ma'am.
Thanks. You haven't been very successful, have you, Marshal?
Maybe that's your fault. Maybe you haven't told me enough.
About what?
About Tamar and your husband, for instance.
What about Tamar and my husband?
This about them, ma'am. They were real good friends. That could be a reason for you to kill your husband.
Could, Marshal, but it wasn't. Maybe he was killed because he found out who was cheating this wheel and you didn't.
But I did.
Then why don't you take him?
You want me to take Greg Hagan?
Greg Hagan? I don't believe it. Hagan's an honest man, as honest as you are, Marshal. Can you prove what you're saying?
I don't know. But I'm sticking around to see if I can. And I'm sticking around to see if I can bring in a killer.
Who is it?
Maybe you. Maybe Greg. Maybe Booth, the man in the beaded jacket. Maybe even the girl named Tamar.
Then come on in and have a drink. You look peaked.
I followed her into the casino. In an hour, it began to fill up. I hid myself behind the stairs where I had a clear view of the roulette table and waited. About 8, she walked through the door. Tamar. Tamar in a dress of red. Tamar buckled with silver. She strolled over to the table and put some chips on the black as Greg spun. There was no sign of recognition between them.
7 black, 7 pays, black pays. Place your bet.
On the next spin, Tamar won again. Then she lost. She doubled her bets and won more times than she lost. After a while, she stopped playing colors and switched to single numbers, 35-1. She kept on winning, about 1 out of 4. In an hour, there was roughly $20,000 stacked in front of her. And in an hour, there wasn't any doubt they were a team, and Greg was spinning a crooked wheel.
13 black. 13 pays, black pays.
Well, you're lucky. You're very lucky tonight, Tamar.
Tonight, senora. I am always lucky at your tables, no?
Not as lucky as tonight. Sorry, men, this is a private table from now on. You can all move over to the second row, right over there.
Private table, senora?
Yes, just you and this gentleman.
Mrs. Contrarius was playing it smart. The man she thumbed at over her shoulder was Booth in his beaded jacket. I could have made my move then, but I decided to wait for the piece to play itself out. Mrs. Contrarius was getting them all together, and this show was too good to spoil. Greg, Booth, and Tamar.
This is my last spin.
That's all right, Tamar. All Mr. Booth wants is just one spin. Right, Mr. Booth?
Yeah, just one spin. With a little lady.
But I will...
Mr. Booth, huh?
Yeah.
Well, I suppose it is all right. Spin the wheel, Greg.
We'll spin. Once more.
Bueno. All of my money on number 1.
Number 1, huh? That's a good number. Number 1. I'll take 10,000 in gold on number 1.
Three red. 3 pays, red pays.
Greg, why you double-crossed me.
I double-crossed you.
It don't matter, Tamar.
Greg didn't have a chance. The knife he tried to draw was hammered back by the bullets from Booth's gun. They tore through his hand and across his chest. Suddenly, his face changed. He looked young and hurt and ashamed of the blood that he couldn't hold back. Booth held his guns like they were dogs on a leash that could snap easy.
Keep back, all of you. Marshal, you can quit playing possum now. It'll make me real happy if you try to follow it.
Pick up the money and let's go, Tamar.
Nobody move. Nobody move.
You let him get away, Marshal.
I don't think so, ma'am. He'll be wanting to finish me off. I'm going to give him his chance. I could have looked for him in a lot of places, but he was with Tamar. That narrowed it down. There was only one place to look. It was dawn when I found him, resting easy in the cottonwood clearing.
I knew you'd have to come after me, Marshal. You know, you're funnier than an actor I saw once in Dodge. You're much funnier.
Maybe you laugh too easy, Booth. Like you kill too easy.
A marshal with his gun arm and a sling chasing a killer.
Go away, Marshal. Go away while there is still time.
I got nothing but time. I'll wait.
That's where you're wrong, Marshal. You got no time at all.
Yeah?
Chico, this I do not believe. It is impossible that someone could shoot faster than Senor Booth. But with your left hand. Oh, Chico. You are so very quick with your gun. I like that about a man.
Take it easy, Tamar. Come on, let's go.
Go? Oh, not now, Marshal. There is time. Sit here next to Tamar.
Like this?
See.
You know what I think?
Oh, Chico. Chico, do not talk now.
I think you had a great thing with Greg. He could put that ball in any number you bet on. Only that wasn't enough for you.
Oh, but it does not matter now, querido.
You thought you could double your profits by throwing in with Booth. Maybe you were going to double-cross him, too. Like you double-crossed Contrarius and Greg.
Oh, do not worry about it, Chico. The money is yours, too.
It belongs to Mrs. Contrarius. And that's who's going to get it.
What? What are you talking about?
Take your choice. Come back with me to the jail and gouge eye, or I'll turn you over to Mrs. Contrarius. And I don't think she could stand having you alive.
Why, you... Oh, Chico, surely. Surely you are playing with me, huh?
You murdered a man, Tamar.
Chico.
You killed Contrarius.
But, Chico, I told you the shot that killed Contrarius came from the woods in back of the clearing.
Much closer than that. From your gun, Tamar. Contrarius had powder burns on his forehead, so that shot was fired from up close. I saw that when I looked into his coffin. Powder burns from your gun, Tamar.
We will go away together, you and I, Chico. Listen to me, Chico.
Aquarius found out you were double-crossing him with Greg, didn't he?
Listen to me.
Let's go, Tamar.
Listen to me, Chico. There is plenty of money, yours and mine. Listen to me, Chico.
She put her arms around my neck and her lips close to my ear. And for a long time, first in English, then in Spanish, then in Cherokee, then in a language I couldn't recognize, she whispered at me every foul name in the book. She was talented. She didn't repeat herself once. Tamar didn't understand that a marshal had a job to do, and that the job got... On the way back to Dodge City, I came across a cottonwood clearing I'd never noticed before. I rode down into it. A small animal scurried off a log and lost itself in the shadows. Then I was alone. For a time after that, for a long time after that, I thought about Tamar. They'd given her guitar, but I knew she wouldn't be singing much longer. The rest of the way home, the country was dust. It got inside of my mouth, and it stayed there.
Gunsmoke featured Howard Culver as Mark Dillon. Supported by June Foray, Gerald Moore, Vic Perrin, Jack Crucian, D.J. Thompson, and Jay Novello. Music was composed and conducted by Del Castillo. The original story, by Morton Fine and David Friedkin, was directed by Richard Sanville. This is Alan Botzer to Gunsmoke, and another thrilling adventure with Mark Dillon, United States Marshal. This is CBS, the Columbia Broadcasting System.
From July of 1949, the second attempt to do an audition for Gunsmoke. Now, Gunsmoke would become one of the most important shows in the history of radio and television. It would revolutionize what America thought about Westerns. Now, let's go back a little bit and look at those shows that were Westerns from the very beginning. The Tom Mix show, for example. The Lone Ranger, of course, which itself has to be treated as a unique thing. Running for 2 decades, all the episodes written almost entirely by the same person, coming out of WXYZ in Detroit, and in the last decade, one of the greatest wonderful announcers and gentlemen in the history of broadcasting, Fred Foy, did the announcing. So we had those 2 shows and some other Westerns, but you know what? Most of them are still considered to be juvenile Westerns. They were aimed at young people. Although Fred Foy once told me he was amazed when he found out his grandfather listened to The Lone Ranger and knew all the plots. Not because his grandson was the narrator, but he liked the shows. The same in some ways can be said about Sergeant Preston of the Yukon, which was a rather adult show, but it was pitched to young people. That show also came out of WXYZ in Detroit. And the third show to come out of there, of course, later was The Green Hornet. But when William Paley of CBS directed his West Coast unit to come up with a new kind of Western that was very much like the detective shows of the day, what they ended up with would, as I said, revolutionize broadcasting. So a script was written. It was called Mark Dillon, not Matt Dillon. Mark Dillon Goes to Gouge Eye. And the first attempt at doing it was done in June of 1949, and that was with Rye Billsbury in the lead. Then 1 month later, Howard Culver did the one we just heard. Same script, but a kind of softer attack, less of that hard-boiled detective and more of a real marshal of the Old West. Now, when we consider the actors who could have played that part, we have to include a fellow who was a real Renaissance man. He ended up doing a little bit of everything in radio and television, and before that, he had been a cartoonist with Disney. I'll give you a hint. Frontier Gentleman. Have Gun Will Travel. Of course, we're talking about John Dehner, who would end up being in almost every episode of Gunsmoke. But CBS did a promotional piece while they were still trying to figure out which direction Gunsmoke should take and how it should get off the ground. This is only 10 minutes long, and it is kind of a conceptual piece, if you will. But notice the following, the great acting style of John Dehner, and boy, the audio quality is magnificent.
They all drift here to Dodge City one time or another. The Buffalo Killers, the Saddle Bums, the Spoilers. It's the end of the track and the start of the wilderness. It's a place to stop and take the kind of pleasure you need. It's a place to pass through, and sometimes it's a place to die. Mark Dillon's part of it is a sun-charred shack, rent paid by the United States government, and a marshal's badge furnished free. He's there now, watching the street from his window, smoking a thin black cigar. He's several inches over 6 feet in height, with a gaunt, bronzed face. A faded shirt seems molded across his heavy shoulders, and a gun belt made of yellow elk's hide hangs around his narrow hips, the big black-handled Colt in his holster shiny from use. He stands there, erect and unbending as always, watching the heat plump itself with Kansas dust and roll in towards the town.
Come in.
Your name Dillon? You the United States Marshal?
Yes,
They said there was a steady marshal here, still alive after 6 months.
they've been lying to you. 4 months.
They say you and your gun can break a man's heart at 50 yards.
What's on your mind, ma'am?
I want you to saddle up and get down to Gougi.
Why?
My husband. My husband owns the White Buffalo Roulette Music Whiskey. They say it's a roulette wheel that's crooked.
Well, now, ma'am, I'll tell you what to do. There's a fella in Dodge, Sin Killer Stocks. Saves souls by the bushel, trumpet playing, everything. Tell Sin Killer about your husband.
In Gougi, they kill a man who runs a crooked wheel. I don't want my husband dead.
Well, look, ma'am, I don't...
Abigail Contuaris. That's my name.
Yeah, all right, Mrs. Contuarius, but you don't need a marshal. You need an honest husband.
That wheel's no more crooked than the barrel stave. If it was, I wouldn't take none of the money's won from it.
You sure?
Don't sure me, Marshal. The money don't just mean money to me. It means books for Indian kids and writing stuff, slates and all.
Ah, missionary, huh?
Oh, me, with a gambler and a philanderer and a toper for a husband. I teach Indian kids, that's all. Teach them to behave and a little learning, that's all.
Well, that's good work, ma'am. These towns could use more people like you.
Don't sniff around me. You marshals are supposed to mean law and order and the rights of decent people. Gouge, I could use some of that. You coming? Do I have to ride my mule some more?
Ride it back to Gouge. I'll be along.
Make it soon, Marshal. There'll be a convulsion down there if you don't.
It's night when the town of Gougi comes out of the wilderness and beckons to Mark Dillon like a painted, skinny hag. If Dodge City has a sister, this is it. The marshal rides past the White Buffalo, dismounts, and starts to tie his horse to a hitching post whittled to the shape of a Pawnee girl, when suddenly the gun in his back tells him that he's not alone.
You won't like it here, Marshal. Pretty as it is, you won't like it.
No?
No. Don't turn around, Marshal. I'm shy and I'm modest and I embarrass easy. Isn't that so, Harold? See? Harold thinks it's so. Harold had his tongue clipped. Paiutes.
Maybe it was too long.
Oh, no, that's not a genteel thing to say to Harold, Marshal. He takes offense.
I'm new here. Back in Dodge City, the etiquette's a little more formal.
Then go back to Dodge. We're very happy here in Gougi, like little birds. You could spoil it.
I was invited. Special invitation.
Well, your invitation's canceled, Marshal. The dance is over.
You have slept long, Chico, without dreams.
How do you know there were no dreams, Tamar?
Because I saw Death give you a little piece of himself and then ride away on his black pony.
Yeah, I'm lucky. How'd I get here?
Senor Cantuaris and I brought you here. You are very lucky, Chico. The bullet was for your heart, but it spent itself in your shoulder. Oh, Chico, I'm glad it was not your time to die.
You want me to live, Tamar?
Yes, Chico. I want you to live.
But it was Cantuarius' time to die. Is that it?
Perhaps his grave has been empty too long.
You knew him well?
See, I knew him.
Well enough to kill him?
I did not kill him. Senor Cantuaris was my protector.
What did he protect you from? Himself?
I like your mouth better when it is gentle, Chico.
Then who did kill him?
I do not know. Chico.
How come you picked this place?
It is a place Senor Cantuaris and I knew well.
I see.
I persuaded Senor Booth you were dead.
Booth persuades easy.
He persuades easy. For Tamar. Senor Booth does not like too much attention.
Well, he's going to get a lot of mine, Tamar.
I don't advise it, Chico.
Oh?
If you live, go back to Dodge City. If you die, die in Dodge City.
Dillon follows her into the casino. He gets a glass of rye whiskey and takes it to a corner table where he kills the next hour dealing cards to himself. Gradually, the room begins to fill up, and he moves to a secluded spot behind the stairs where he has a clear view of the roulette table. There, he quietly waits. About 8, she walks through the door. Tamar. Tamar in a dress of red. Tamar buckled with silver. She strolls over to the table and puts some chips on the black as Greg, without once looking at her, spins.
7 black, 7 pays, black pays. Place your bet.
On the next spin, Tamar wins again. Then she loses. She doubles her bets and wins more times than she loses. In an hour, the marshal estimates there's roughly $20,000 stacked up in front of her. In an hour, there isn't any doubt in his mind that they're a team, and Greg is spinning a crooked wheel. And then, just before she bets number 13, he notices Greg fold his thumb under his palm and rub the side of his face. In a dry creek bed along the trail from Gaujai back to Dodge City stands a small clump of cottonwood. The marshal slowly rides down into it and pulls up his horse. A ground squirrel scurries off a log and loses itself in the shadows. Then he's alone. He throws one knee across the saddle horn and sits there, rolling a cigarette, thinking about Tamar. Back in Gaujai, he saw to it that they gave her a guitar. But Tamar won't be singing much longer. She'll hang within a week. The marshal lights his cigarette. Then suddenly he straightens up, savagely kicks his boot back into the stirrup, and rides hard out of the trees onto the trail to Dodge. The rest of the way home, country's dust gets inside his mouth, and it stays there.
Once again, that was a 10-minute promotional piece put together by the people who were trying to get Gunsmoke on the air, and this time around they had the great John Dehner play Marshal Mark Dillon. Let's go back and get a little taste of John Dehner's voice, and then I want to do some comparing.
I'm new here. Back in Dodge City, the etiquette's a little more formal.
Then go back to Dodge. We're very happy here in Gaujai, like little birds. You could spoil it.
I was invited. Special invitation.
John Dehner indeed did have a commanding voice, a very articulate, a very eloquent kind of voice in many ways that really paid tribute to the fact he was indeed, as I mentioned, a Renaissance kind of man. and he probably would have been very good at doing the Matt Dillon character in Gunsmoke if we hadn't heard all those episodes with William Conrad. One of the neat things about John Dehner is he would show up in just a blue million Gunsmokes because he could do a variety of different characters. Let's move forward in time, and here's an episode where William Conrad, as Matt Dillon, gets caught in a blizzard. He's about to freeze to death and knocks on the door of a cabin. And the older man who is in charge of the family, believe it or not, is John Dehner. Listen to the way he could manipulate and change his voice.
Then the door came open, and a figure stood in the light.
Bring him in, Alvy. Any man out in that weather's been made harmless.
Get inside.
Out of the way, Alvy, you fool. All right, stranger, hands in the air. High. That's better. Unload him, Alvy.
Nice gun, Hack. Real nice gun.
Shut up. Hey, take him down, stranger. You can come up to the stove now, but don't try nothing. I'll cut you in half with buckshot.
He was a burly man with flushed cheeks and a wild red beard and a great shock of red hair. Even his hands and fingers bristled with it. He sat on a stool by the stove, a shotgun across his knees, and his eyes never left me. The other one, Alvy, had a body of an underfed boy, but he was completely bald, and his skin was tight and dry. He looked like a naked skull, and his eyes, well, something had touched Alvy.
You look half froze, stranger. You must have wanted something real bad to go out in weather like this.
I never saw him around here before, Hack.
He's a stranger, Alvy. He don't belong around here.
Of course, we don't know anybody, but I seen a few, and I never seen him before.
Maybe he's seen you, Alvy, somewhere.
Not me. He never saw me nowhere.
How do you know that?
Maybe he was just looking for some cows and got lost in a storm.
You're just a kid, Alvy. I always said you don't know much. Belle! Belle, get on out here.
She was a pretty girl, but with a dark, half-wild look that I'd never seen before in a woman. Her eyes jumped from man to man and then came to rest on me, fixed and curious. And then after a moment, she looked away and moved into a chair across the room.
Supper ready, Belle? It's awful cold out.
You recognize him, Belle? You ever see him before?
No.
You're sure now? Maybe Hayes City. Maybe you saw him up there sometime.
I don't know him.
You're sure?
Yes.
If you're lying to me, you know what I'll do to you.
I never saw him before.
He come in here half froze, right out of the blizzard. Must have been looking for some cows and got lost.
Shut up, Alvy. We don't know what he's doing here, Belle.
Why shouldn't a man get out of the storm? Even in here.
That's enough. All right, stranger, we never saw you before. We don't know who you are. And as soon as I think you're lying, I'm going to blow a big hole in you.
What about my horse? I'd like to put him in the barn if you've got one.
Alvy?
Oh, now, Hack, I ain't going out there. I'd freeze.
And the horse will freeze if you don't.
It's his horse.
We might need it. Go on, Alvy, before I get cross.
All right, I'll go. I don't know why that horse is so important.
Alvy's a good boy. He'll put your horse up.
Thank you.
Supper's about ready.
Leave it. I want to talk to our friend here first. Maybe we won't have to feed him.
Potatoes will get mealy.
They better not, that's all. I'm right curious about you, mister.
I've noticed that.
I'll blow your guts all over the wall. You make fun of me. Don't get me mad, mister. I got the shotgun.
The meat'll be boiled to shreds if we don't eat soon.
You just won't understand any other way, will you, Belle?
What is it you want to know about me?
I can tell, mister, I can handle you easy now.
What do you mean?
All I got to do is wallop the girl and you'll talk. I don't have to do nothing to you.
All right if I take my jacket off? I've warmed up now.
I mind. You might have a gun hid out in there.
He can raise his hands. I'll unbutton it.
Well, now that's right smart of you, Belle.
It looks to me like I sort of struck gold coming here.
Now, why do you talk like that, Marshal? I still got the shotgun.
Let me get that stove. Seems like it's getting colder and colder.
You didn't see any sign of nobody outside, did you, Alvy?
What? Who?
Somebody might have come along to cover the marshal here, it's all.
Marshal? What marshal?
Me. I'm a marshal, Alvy.
Shoot him, Hack. Shoot him.
Shut up and answer me. Was there sign of another horse, footprints, anything like that?
Ah, I didn't see nothing.
Maybe you didn't look.
Would I have walked in here the way I did if I'd been after you people?
Maybe your head got muddled with the cold. Where'd you ride from, Marshal?
Hayes City. Left there this morning.
That was a fool thing to do with a blizzard coming up.
Maybe.
Or did you think you could get the jump on us easier in a storm? Was that it, Marshal?
Yeah. You knew we'd be trying to keep cozy in here.
I'm curious, Hack. What are you and Alvy on the run for?
Don't you tell him, Hack. I don't trust him at all.
Alvy, it'd be mighty dull without you, boy.
Thought you might like to hear that, as the great John Daner plays the early incarnation of Matt Dillon, Mark Dillon, on a CBS radio promotional piece, and then from an episode down the road of Gunsmoke after it got going with the cast we learned to know and love so much. John Daner is a bullheaded, illiterate sort of guy. That was the neat thing about the radio players who would be part of Gunsmoke. Let's historically go back for a moment, and then I want to talk about the characters before we close out this edition. After the 2 half-hour auditions and that short promotional piece, the idea of doing Gunsmoke sat around for a while. As a matter of fact, it sat on the shelf at CBS Radio in Los Angeles for 3 years. Then Norman Macdonald, the great producer who would go on to do so many amazing things, got together with writer John Meston, and Meston would go on to write probably 80% of all the episodes of Gunsmoke. And by 1952, they had put a cast together that would change radio. Now, in looking for someone to play the newly renamed Matt Dillon, they couldn't get Howard Culver, who had done the second audition. He was busy doing Straight Arrow and couldn't get out of his contract, which said he could not do a second Western on the air. And so everybody had this slogan, ABC, anybody but Conrad. William Conrad was likely the most overexposed person on radio. His booming voice was just about everywhere, and it was heard regularly on the 2 CBS series Suspense and Escape. But when he decided to push for the part and was allowed to do a short audition, and Norman Macdonald listened to it, he thought, yeah, William Conrad is Matt Dillon. And then the part of Chester, Parley Bear, another very, very versatile actor who would go on to be in a ton of the Yours Truly Johnny Dollar episodes. He would become a next-door neighbor on Ozzie and Harriet, Mayor Stoner on Mayberry, and Ernie the Keebler Elf. Parley Bear was a wonderfully innocent and sweet Chester. Howard McNear, who was in so many radio episodes no one can count. He was Floyd the Barber on Mayberry. He played the sidekick to Elliot Lewis on the Casebook of Gregory Hood. What wasn't he in? Howard McNeil became Doc. And a great actress, Georgia Ellis, who never sounded as if she was acting, would become Miss Kitty. And she would retire as soon as Gunsmoke was over. The next time around, we'll play episode 1 of Gunsmoke with that incredible cast. And I'll make you a bet, you won't like it. And that's it for this time around. I'm Dennis Daly. Thanks for joining me on Gunsmoke Theater. as we go back into the archives to play more of the episodes of the radio show that changed everything for the better. Gunsmoke, right here on YouTube.